feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me.
Matt Skraby wraps up a full day of live and local sports talk.
And that is the whole problem with aliens. You just can't trust them. Occasionally you meet a nice one, but usually they turn out to be some kind of big lizard.
The Skraby Show starts now on 97.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for June 26, 2025. Thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed the roundtable. I thought I had everything set for the show tonight, and then I got something that happened right as we were going into it. But I guess it's not right when we were going into it. I decided to go check MLB.com one more time to see if there was anything on there that I wanted to talk about. And lo and behold, we have the finalists to start the 2025 All-Star Game. So we are going to go through that in just a second. But basically, two players from each position are through to phase two, which means that all of the phase one votes go away. So these guys are going to be it's going to be between two players per position per league for the starter. So we will go over that a little bit later. But I have been sitting in studio here. People often ask me, what do you do in that hour between the end of the Gwen and Chris show and then the start of your show with the roundtable in the middle? Well, I always listen to the roundtable again to see what, something I missed. But today I've been sitting in here watching Fort Wayne and Great Lakes play. Now, for the only reason, not the only reason, but the main reason I'm watching Fort Wayne and Great Lakes right now is because Leo DeVries is on the Fort Wayne team. Right now, Fort Wayne is up 4-1, but I've been watching his at-bats carefully today, and people ask me, why is he not ready? Why is he not at the big league level? Well, I saw it today, and it's not like he's a bad player or anything, but he had some pretty wild swings, and he was getting fooled on a lot of breaking pitches. He, I think, is 0 for 3 so far in the game. If he comes up to bat while we're doing the show, I'll let you know, but he has not honestly looked great at the plate. Now, do I think that means anything? No, but it proves to me why he's not ready for the major league level yet. If he can't identify pitches at high A Fort Wayne, then he's not going to be able to identify pitches at the major league level right now. But I'll let you know if he comes up to bat one more time. Again, Fort Wayne winning 4-1. I always find I've never actually been to a minor league game, but I always find it amazing how many people go to these minor league games, because every time they show the stadium in this during this game, it's been full, and it's a summer day. I mean, it's a Thursday. It's a summer day on a Thursday, and they got full stadium there. So again, I'll keep you up to date on everything there. I met a couple Skrabinators last week. We went and watched some of the Dodgers and Padres game on Wednesday, and I was very happy to meet Oscar. He is a big guy, a big part of the chat here. If you want to watch the show, you can just go to YouTube, search 97.3 The Fan. If you want to chat with the Skrabinators, you go youtube.com/@the-Skraby-Show, and you'll be able to find the live there. I'm also on Twitter @Matt Skraby. But Oscar has always been on the chat and met him, so that was great. Katrina was there. That was great. Eric was there. Trevor was there. Maria was there. Tyler showed up at the end, so it was nice seeing all of you out there. We're going to try some more of these meetups. I'm not sure of dates or times or anything like that, but we're going to try that. Also, I have been going through all of my old radio audio, and this is like pre-rehab Skraby. When I started in radio, I started as an intern on a morning show on a rock station in town. I think you could put it together. But I was a drunk at the time, and so I really took this internship serious. It was a free internship, or I wasn't getting paid for the internship. And I was the only 27-year-old or 28-year-old that was, or maybe even 30-year-old, that was taking it as seriously as I did, because some of these kids that were coming in for the internship, they just wanted to be on the mic, but I did everything. And so that's how I kind of got to this point. But they had me do a couple bits where one of them was going out to the grocery store and asking women out and recording it. And I recently went down memory lane and listened to some of those things, and it is embarrassing. So I'm going to, at some point this summer, not sure when, but I'll give everybody plenty of notice. I'm going to go play some of my old audio from back in the day. And I think that everyone is going to love it because it is a Skraby you've never heard before. And it's a Skraby that is a little wild. So, I mean, the other bit that I did was I went out to bars and I asked trivia questions to people. And when I was at the bar, but I ended up, because I was a drinker, I ended up being more drunk than the contestants, basically. So everybody thought that was really funny as well. But I'm going to do something later this summer with all of the old audio from Matt Skraby days on when I was an intern. That is stuff that I never really thought about playing, but Diesel has told me 100 times to do it, and I finally started winning or going through everything and getting those done. So someone said, I love the Skraby bits on the rock. Yes. Anyway, all right. We have a ton to talk about tonight, and we're gonna start with Dylan Cease, since Dylan Cease has been a topic of conversation. Also, I want to go through some of Mike Shildt's comments over the past week and a half, because there's things that he's saying in these comments that I think are 100% true. And I think that we need to, because I've been trying to think of a different way to talk about the Padres and talk about how they quote unquote struggle and how they are, under 500 in the month of June. So I think that I want to go at it a little bit of a different way. Not sure how it's going to work out, but we'll go through that. Also, I want to talk about Xander Bogaerts being in the leadoff spot, because we talked about it on the roundtable. And if you missed the roundtable, I have the audio. I'll play it for you. But I guess I have a really short-term memory about Xander Bogaerts in the leadoff spot, like an incredibly short-term memory for Xander Bogaerts in the leadoff spot, because he did it last year, and he had 118 at bats last year in the leadoff spot. For some reason, I put that out of my mind. So we'll talk about Xander in the leadoff. Also talk about Luis Arraez a little bit. And then I have a daily gripe, and I think it's a good gripe for me, but I like my gripe. Also, Jazz Chisholm Jr. was ejected from a game against the Reds earlier this week, and there's a little bit more information on that. Plus, we're going to talk about this Justin Tucker thing for just a second towards the end of the show. But let's talk about Dylan Cease, because Dylan Cease, I think, has been a conundrum for Padres fans. I think that Dylan Cease, I think that he is kind of a victim of, not a victim, I was going to say of like him being an ace and him not living up to being an ace. I don't think he's a victim of that. He's pitched very well in his career. But this year, I guess the way I should say it is, I don't feel like when Dylan Cease starts a game that it's going to be a shutdown game for the Padres. And I feel like a lot of people thought when he was traded here at the beginning of last year, they thought they were getting a guy who was going to be a shutdown pitcher every fifth day. And he has been that. And he was that at points last year. Like right here on the wall, we have a picture on the sports section of Dylan Cease after his no-hitter. And I was reading the article that was on the wall, and I completely forgot that the no-hitter for Dylan Cease was saved. It was in Washington, by the way. It was saved by this incredible Xander Bogaerts, Jackson Merrill deflection. It was like Xander Bogaerts went down to the ground a little bit, and the ball popped up in the air, and Jackson Merrill was there to catch it, and that kept the no-hitter intact. I completely forgot about that as well. So we're, I guess, going down memory lane a little bit. But this year, Dylan Cease is 3-6 with a 4.43 ERA, 1.29 WHIP, and he has struck out 109 batters this season. By the way, they're facing Nick Martinez tomorrow. Nick Martinez hasn't been the greatest starter for the Reds here this year, but Nick Martinez, it's kind of not a rivalry game, but it is a game that Nick Martinez probably really wants to win. But Dylan Cease himself, I went through his game log in the last hour, and I looked up, like, the way I went into this was, could the Padres have won this game that Dylan Cease started? And strangely enough, like, going into, I always like to have my preconceived notion going into it and then finding the actual answer as I'm going through it. But my preconceived notion was that he has had multiple, maybe 3, 4, 5 games this year that he has pitched the Padres out of winning that game. But that's not really true, because if you're thinking about a starter in baseball, like, and that starter gives up 2 runs or 3 runs, I'll say 3 runs at max, I think you should have a good shot to win that game. I do. 3 runs is not going to lose games for you. Now, 3 runs early, it's all relative, but 3 runs should not be a hill that you cannot climb because it's so steep. Now, 14 of his 16 starts this year, Dylan Cease, he's given up 3 earned runs or less. And 9 of those 14 starts with 3 earned runs or less, 9 of those starts he has given up 2 runs or less. So in 14 starts, he's given up 3 earned runs or less. 14 times this year, Dylan Cease has given up only 3 runs. Shouldn't that be good enough to put your team in a position to win? I definitely think so. And so maybe when we're looking at Dylan Cease, we have to maybe put in a little bit of perspective that he's not getting run support, or, he's not getting what he's not getting the defense behind him, or something like that. But when Dylan Cease goes out there, 14 of his 16 starts, he's given up 3 earned runs or less. And I think those 3 earned runs or less is not asking too much out of your offense. Now, is it always going to happen where your offense scores for you? Absolutely not. It's not always going to happen. I understand that. But if you 14 times 3 runs, like, that should be something that the Padres can overcome. So when you're thinking about Dylan Cease and you're thinking about whether or not he is a top pitcher in this league, he might not be the first name that comes to mind, but I don't think that he has pitched bad enough to take himself away from being mentioned as one of the better pitchers in the league. I think that when Dylan Cease goes bad, it goes really bad for him. The two games that he completely lost for the Padres, one of them was against the A's. And so the A's game earlier in the year, I believe he gave up 6 or 9 earned runs. I already clicked out of the tab like a dummy. Against the A's on April 8th, he gave up 9 runs. And then he followed that up with 2 runs apiece in the next 3 games. And then on June 16th, Monday, the start against the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium, he gave up 6 runs. Those are just the 2 games where he's given up more than 3 runs. And he came back last week, went 6 2/3 on Saturday, and only gave up 1 run to a pretty dangerous Royals offense. So here's what I'm thinking about Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease is much better than I guess I give him credit for. Dylan Cease is much better than I think some of the fans give him credit for. But I also understand that, like, sometimes Dylan Cease is not at his best when he needs to be his best. So that's all great and everything that he gives up 3 earned runs or less in 14 of 16 starts. But sometimes he just doesn't pitch well in the situations that they absolutely need him to pitch well. And I think going forward, he's definitely going to be a huge part of the second half of the season, because game number 81 is tomorrow. He's going to not only be a huge part of the second half, but he's going to be a big part of your playoff run. I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think he's going to be in any trade deals or anything like that, because they need starting pitching and they can't afford to give away someone like Dylan Cease. Now, if the return is too good, blah, 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 yes, we'll take it. And if there's someone who can come in and fill his spot. But I have a feeling that we're going to see Dylan Cease get better and better and better as the season goes along. He's a workhorse for the most part. I mean, he never misses games. He started 32 games 2 years ago. He started 33 games last year, and he's going to probably start 33 games this year. That is a highly, highly, highly underrated part of Dylan Cease, is that he makes every start. And that's important because we're looking at right now with the Padres rotation, you got Michael King out. You have, I don't know why I just went blank on all the, Yu Darvish out. You have guys out. And Dylan Cease is not one of those guys that takes himself out of the rotation or gets injured or anything like that, knock on wood. So that is a highly underrated part to Dylan Cease. But I think that he is going to get better because things, if you look at his numbers and you look at each game individually, I think that he is getting better. He's throwing a lot of pitches, but he has been a guy in the past to throw a lot of pitches. So I'm not too worried about how many pitches he throws. His June ERA is 3.8, so that's much better than his overall ERA of 4.43. He had a pretty darn good May in regards a 3.71 ERA isn't like outstanding, but it's not terrible, and a 3.71 ERA starting pitcher will give you a chance to win the game. And so when we think about Dylan Cease tomorrow night, we got to think positively. We got to think that Dylan Cease is going to pitch a good game. Now, it's really tough to pitch at the Great American Ballpark. Really, really tough to pitch there. It is extremely easy to hit home runs. It is extremely easy to rack up a bunch of runs. And we've seen this with the Padres in the past when they go there. So I'm not worried because he is kind of a Midwest guy. He grew up in Georgia, so he's dealt with humidity and heat and all that stuff. But if Dylan Cease can stay healthy, he is going to be one of the major reasons that the Padres will get into the playoffs. And I don't have any doubts about that whatsoever. Right now, he's tied for 9th most strikeouts in Major League Baseball at 109. So he's still doing things. I think maybe we're not asking too much of Dylan Cease, but I think we need to give him a little bit of a break. And I'm not saying that a lot of people are mad at Dylan Cease, but I'm also not saying that a lot of people are happy with Dylan Cease. He's kind of in the middle, which I understand to a certain degree. But again, this is the stat that jumped out at me. 14 of his 16 starts, he's given up 3 earned runs or less. You might say you're just focusing on one stat. Yes, I am focusing on one stat because really that's the only stat that matters. How many runs did he give up? That's how you lose games, giving up runs. So to me, in the end, if you don't give up runs, you're doing a good job. And if you give up a lot of runs, you're not doing a good job. So Dylan Cease is doing a pretty good job this year, giving up only 3 earned runs or less in most of his starts. All right, I'm Matt Skraby. This is the Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about Xander Bogaerts in the leadoff spot. We're also going to talk about Luis Arraez. I'm forgetting names all of a sudden. Like I turned 40 and all of a sudden I can't remember anybody's name. This is crazy. But we'll talk about Luis Arraez and so one feat that he has over the rest of baseball is kind of crazy. So stick with me. A couple more segments to go here on the Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800.
need to start getting new music for rejoins. I do. I need to say it out loud because then I will actually do it. I don't think we have any Skraby shows next week. Possibly on, I don't know. I don't think we have any next week. I can't believe that 4th of July is next Friday. It's all craziness over here. This is the Skraby Show, by the way. I'm Matt Skraby. You can follow me on Twitter at Matt Skraby or watch the show on Twitter at Matt Skraby. Also, youtube.com/@the Skraby Show is where the Skrabinators are chatting right now. And I was looking through some of the chats in the break, and I was looking at Prolific, and Prolific said, don't underestimate Randy Vasquez. Most of his L's was due to lack of offense, losing by 1-2 runs and pitched as well, and continues to do that. Yes, I mean, I've been a big Randy Vasquez fan since before the year even started. I actually remember on this very show with Frank in studio with me, we did this whole segment out of who's going to get the 4th and 5th rotation spots out of like a couple guys. And Randy Vasquez was one. Matt Waldron was the other. I thought Matt Waldron was a given because of his success last year. And Randy Vasquez was someone who was going to make it because he pitched well enough to be able to get a shot in the big leagues this year. But I am a fan of Randy Vasquez. I think he's done some great things this year. I also think that he's been limited by Mike Shildt and coaching staff. And what I mean by limited is he's not able to work out of certain situations or hadn't been able to work out certain situations. And we talked all about it when the Dodgers and the Padres played that Wednesday at Petco Park when he was removed, when Ohtani was coming up for the 3rd time. He's also been limited because he has walked a lot of batters this year. I mean, they call him the traffic cop. That's how many guys he walks. But in the last, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. In the last 3 games, he's only walked 3 guys in total across all 3 games. And then he walked 4, and then he walked 3. But then in May, he had a stretch where he only walked 1, 0, 1, 1. So his walks are getting better, and you're able to see how he can pitch. I think Randy Vasquez is, maybe not a massive part of this team, but I think Randy Vasquez is someone that we can't overlook. He has made all of his starts this year. I have liked what I've seen. He's worked his ERA all the way down to 3.6. He just went 7 innings against the Royals, and he only gave up 2 runs. So Randy Vasquez is a solid pitcher. Definitely a solid pitcher. We'll see how solid he is as the season goes along, and then next year as well. But I think Randy Vasquez has proven to us that he can pitch in the big leagues, number one. And number 2 is he can be a very effective pitcher in the big leagues. I can't say that. He is a guy who was kind of a throw-in to the Michael King, Kyle Higashioka, Juan Soto trade when they traded to the Yankees. He was kind of, no one really knew about him too much. They had heard about him, but they didn't really know about him. And now he is a guy who's firmly entrenched in this rotation. So along with Dylan Cease, which I saw in the chat, Dan said, Dylan Cease is not an ace type pitcher. He's not worth $30 million a year. Definitely agree with that. I don't know if he's even going to be seeking $30 million a year. I know that I believe his agent is Scott Boras. So I think that they're going to be seeking a lot of money, but I don't know how this year will set up for like a big payday because he's going into his free agency year. So enjoy Dylan Cease for as long as you can because someone's going to give him money. So one team is going to, and maybe in our opinion, overpay him, and that's going to be a sad day. Or maybe he takes a hometown discount. Doubtful, but maybe he does. Also, Randy Vasquez. He is good. And I feel comfortable when Randy Vasquez goes out there to pitch for the Padres every 5th day. Randy Vasquez has not received much run support at all. He's in one of his starts, he had no runs in run support. 3 of his starts, he had 1. In 5 of his starts, he had 2. And then 1 for or 3 runs 1 time, 4 runs 2 times, 5 runs 1 time, 6 runs 2 times. So his run support has not been there in the early, it hasn't been there as much as it has for some of the other guys. I remember it was like, who was it? Blake Snell, who got no run support at all. It was like they would score 25 combined runs around Blake Snell starts, and then they would score 0 when Blake Snell would start. It's got to be, you know what? That's actually got to be very frustrating for a pitcher. Every time you go out there, you're throwing up zeros, but your team can't get you on the board. That's got to be frustrating. All right, quickly with the Luis Arraez stat that I was looking at. Luis Arraez he's a magician with the bat. We know that. Outside of the zone this year, Luis Arraez is hitting .315, meaning he's hitting balls that are balls, and he's hitting over 300 on those balls. The Major League Baseball average is 151. So he's more than double the average on hitting balls outside the zone. In the zone, he has a 279 batting average, and the Major League average is 281 in the zone. So there is something to Luis Arraez really liking to hit a bad ball, and there is something to Luis Arraez knowing that he can hit that bad ball, and he's going to use it to his advantage. And he's slowly making his way back, as we said. He had 3 hits yesterday. The one thing about him in the leadoff position that I am not a fan of, and I keep recognizing it every single time it happens, but when he gets on base first and say Manny hits a double, he's only going to get to third. If he's on first base, Manny doubles, he's only going to third. He's not scoring. Fernando scores, but I don't necessarily love Fernando in the leadoff spot because I like Fernando to be able to have guys on when he hits. But Luis Arraez, you can't deny that Luis Arraez is not a good leadoff hitter, because he is a good leadoff hitter. He did it all through last year. They didn't take him out of that spot most of all of last year. This year, I'm not sure why they went away from it. They wanted Toddy at the top spot, and they gave it a go for a good long while. They gave him like 70-something games. But Luis Arraez in his career has hit in the leadoff spot. Bear with me, everyone. Didn't expect to go to leadoff spot. Luis Arraez stats, I probably should have. But in his career, he's hitting .323 in the leadoff spot, batting first. He's hitting .323 as an OPS of 780. In the third spot, he's hitting .356. He has batted fifth in his career, and he's hitting .376. But if you look at his career numbers, all of his numbers show he can hit anywhere. But when he hits first, and when he's the leadoff hitter, he has by far and away the most at bats as the leadoff hitter. He is hitting .323. So I think it shows you a little bit that Luis Arraez is someone who definitely needs to be. I think he needs to be in the leadoff spot. Even though I don't like the whole clogging of the bases, I think he needs to be in the leadoff spot. I also think he gives the team a little bit of a different energy too. Like he's a serious baseball player, but he's more like fun loving, and he has energy. And I think that's what's needed from time to time for the Padres is his energy. But I don't know that they're going to go away from Luis Arraez. If he's the first batter in the game in his career, .312. If he leads off an inning in his career, .305 batting average. Just all good numbers. So all the numbers say do it. All the numbers say have him lead off. Let's see 2024. I'm going to go to that real quick, and then we're going to go to break, and then I'm going to finish up with Xander Bogaerts on the other side. In 2024, he hit .313 in the first position, 146 games. So I think the Padres are going to have to leave him in the leadoff spot, especially after he had a 3-hit game yesterday. You want to see if he can continue to do stuff with that. I don't know if I necessarily like Manny in the 2 spot, but hey, Shildt wants to go left, right. That's fine. But I think Luis Arraez has proven that he needs to be in that leadoff spot. And he just turned 28 in April 9th. Like, it's kind of crazy that Luis Arraez is only 28. I always think of him as older. he kind of looks older, but at the same time, he just seems like he's been in baseball for a really long time, and I guess he has. All right, I'm Matt Skraby. This is the Skraby Show. When we get back, I feel like I'm rushing through everything, but that's okay. We have Xander Bogaerts. Maybe he could be the leadoff. We'll talk about him and my short-term memory. Also, a couple ancillary. Is that the word ancillary stories? I don't know if it is, but a couple stories that I didn't get to talk about throughout the week, so I wanted to possibly bring them up if we have enough time, and then the Daily Gripe. So stay with me. Skraby Show back shortly on 97.3 The Fan.
Quinn and
right, final segment here on the Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan. Thank you for being here with me. If you don't know, we put up podcasts every single day, and it's of the show. And so you get, if you miss any part of the show, you can either go to the YouTube and you can go back to the time you missed, or you can go to the podcast on 97.3thefansd.com. I actually have a podcast app, and I searched for it, found it, and every day I download it just to make sure I spelled everything right, because I'm very weird like that. I could look at it a million times on the computer and then I wouldn't spell it right, even though I've looked at it a million times on the computer. Okay, Xander Bogaerts, leadoff spot. We got a lot to get done in this segment, so I'm going to get right to it. Xander, I don't mind him being in the leadoff spot, or at least trying. Let me rephrase that. I don't mind him trying the leadoff spot again. And I'm going to tell you why I said again. But here's what we said on the roundtable earlier, and here's what I said about Xander Bogaerts.
I will add that Eno thought that Xander Bogaerts or even Jake Cronenworth would be legitimate options to top the order, and then follow that up with guys like Manny, Tatis, Merrill, and Arise in the next four. Matt?
See, I don't think it's crazy to put Xander at the top, because if Xander gets on base, he can walk, and when he gets on base, he steals bases.
He puts together some pretty good at bats. He runs up some pitch counts.
His ABs lately have been outstanding.
I wouldn't mind to see him at the top spot. There you go. That's what I said earlier. Got a little bit of a backup from Wood saying he could swipe bags as well. Well, after the roundtable, I was talking to some of the people here that work at Odyssey San Diego, and someone brought up, don't you remember when Xander Bogaerts was leading off last year and everybody wanted him not to lead off last year? And I was like, no, I actually don't remember that. I guess I just forced that out of my mind. So I went and I looked at the stats for last year and what he was hit, or what position he was hitting in. And if you're batting, or he was batting first last year, 29 games in the leadoff spot. He had a batting average of 212 and an OPS of 567. So, and 11 walks, only 2 stolen bases. So, what kind of Xander Bogaerts do we think we have right now? Do we have a Xander Bogaerts that has been able to figure out how to get on base here and there? Do we have a Xander Bogaerts that was on fire a couple games ago? Or do we have a Xander Bogaerts that was last year? And last year, he struggled the entire year. I guess when he came back from injury, he wasn't so bad. But this year, he's been poor and bad for most of the year. But recently, he's found something, and I don't know how long that's going to last. Maybe it's already passed us by. But the more I thought about it, and the more I talked about it with some coworkers, Xander Bogaerts just is not the guy for the leadoff spot. And a lot of you are probably sitting there in your car thinking, duh, it took you this long to figure that one out. But the theory is there, I think. If he gets on base, number one, he does take walks, which is good, because Luis Arraez does not walk very often. Jackson Merrill does not walk very often. And so he takes walks, but he also steals bases. And I think that's really important. And I did see on the chat after I said, if Luis Arraez is on first, Manny doubles into the gap, most likely Luis Arraez is only getting to third. And I saw this a couple games ago, and I immediately saw it and pointed it out. Like, that's what Chris has been talking about. Xander Bogaerts would probably get home on that, just because he is a better runner. And so what do you want? Do you want a guy who has contacts, or who's an expert at contact and gets singles and sometimes doubles? Or do you want a guy who and can't steal bases? Or do you want a guy who gets on by walk, by infield hit, and can steal bases? I think after thinking about it and talking through it, I really do think that Xander Bogaerts is better in the middle of the lineup. They got to keep him where he's at. He's a guy who can be so incredibly important if he could figure out how to be more consistent at the plate. His defense is fine, but he could be this team could be so when he was hitting the last 3 or 4 games where he had that hit streak going, the lineup looked different. The team looked different. It was like, okay, this on paper is what we are trying to see, but we can't because Xander Bogaerts isn't hitting to where it is on paper. But when he started hitting, things started going, and the Padres started scoring runs, and the Padres won some games. So he's like him or not, he's incredibly important to this team. Leadoff spot, no, because I have a really, really short-term memory with the leadoff spot and Xander Bogaerts. But I thought that was an interesting note and another research project that I did that turned out to not go in my favor. Jazz Chisholm, let's switch gears for a second. Jazz Chisholm Jr. was playing third base for the Yankees the other Tuesday. And he didn't like something that the umpire called him out, and he didn't like it. He thought it was a bad call. And so when Jazz Chisholm came back out to the field to play third base, the home plate umpire ejected him from across the field. And I think that's kind of weird, because how could you eject a guy after the inning, after everything's behind you, and then eject a guy from behind home plate while he's standing at third base warming up? Well, there's some new information about this, and Jose Trevino was a catcher for the Yankees last year, so he was teammates with Jazz Chisholm Jr. And I guess what happened was, because the umpire threw Jazz out because he said, "Why are you looking at me?" And so Aaron Boone came out and said that the catcher, Jose Trevino, I think he contributed to the ejection too. I think he got umpire Mark Wegner looking in that direction. He said, Trevino said, "I thought that Jazz wanted to talk to Wegner. I thought he was trying to get his attention, so I was just helping him out." And that's when the umpire goes from talking to the catcher, looks at Jazz. Jazz says, "Why are you looking at me?" And then the umpire ejected him. And so you got to think that there's maybe some funny business, like going on there. I don't think Jose Trevino says, "Hey, we're teammates. I was a friend. I'm not going to do anything to hurt the guy." But it is a little strange. Why would you think that Jazz wanted to talk to the umpire after the inning has already been over and after he's gone back in the dugout and got ready in the field? I think there's a little bit of funny business here. I think that Jose Trevino knew that Jazz Chisholm Jr. is a hothead and can fly off the handle at any second. And so he thought, I'm just going to say that to the umpire that Jazz wants to talk to him, because the umpire's probably like, all right, this guy wants to continue yelling about the call that I made from the previous inning. And then he looks at Jazz and Jazz says, "Why are you looking at me?" And that's when he threw him out. So originally, the story was that Jazz looked at the umpire, said, "Why are you looking at me?" And that's when the umpire threw him out. But then Aaron Boone came out and said, "Hey, maybe there was a little bit of coaxing from the catcher of the Reds," which I don't have a problem with, because you're just playing. You're just you know how your former teammate reacts, and you're just kind of playing into it. Jazz Chisholm Jr., he's a good player. I mean, he hit a home run the next day, so he got the last laugh. But I don't have any problems with it. If Trevino, the catcher for the Reds, said something that kind of fanned the flames a little bit or set Jazz up to be ejected, I think it's kind of funny. I think that Trevino was like, "Hey, I know how this guy ticks. I know what makes him angry. And so I'm going to see what happens when I mention to the umpire who's standing right behind me that Jazz wants to talk to him." And that's when it happened. So there's no rules against this, obviously. It's up to Jazz not to look at the umpire and say, "Why are you looking at me?" Like, it's up to him. Just be calm, quiet, cool, collected. It's not something that is good, or that Jazz Chisholm Jr. is good at. But yeah, he gets ejected for a lot of different things, not all the time, but there are moments where Jazz Chisholm Jr. is a little bit over the top. I think we can all agree with that. And by the way, so my phone just popped up with something, and it's a Yankees Reddit post. So I saw this Jazz thing on Reddit. And so now that I've clicked into the Yankees Reddit, for some reason, I keep getting push notifications on Yankees. So that's really annoying. And it just popped up with another one because my phone is definitely listening to me at all times. Okay, what time is it? All right. Justin Tucker, former kicker for the Baltimore Ravens, 10-game suspension is what he received from the NFL for all of this, all of the stuff that is revolving around him, with some masseuses coming out saying that he acted inappropriately with them. A lot of masseuses, actually. But here's what I just read between Gwen and Chris and this show, is that the 10-game suspension was a result of negotiations rather than like the NFL, rather than a legal ruling coming down and the NFL giving him a 10-game suspension. So that leads people to believe that Justin Tucker, if he negotiated a 10-game suspension instead of waiting it out because he was innocent, people are thinking maybe this stuff is true. I get it. There is a it's a weird thing, because if he doesn't defend himself, then he's, if he does this, he's one thing. If he does that, he's another thing. But him accepting a 10-game suspension does contradict a lot of how, what's the word? Steadfastly, he was so serious about not having done any of this. And then all of a sudden it's 10 games now. So does that mean that he's admitting guilt? I don't think it does. But it does, if I was someone who had something, or who was accused of something like that, and I was accused of doing something like that, I would go till the day I die saying I didn't do it. If I didn't do it, if I was telling the truth. So if Justin Tucker gets picked up by a team, he serves this suspension, and it's not even like he's getting punished for it, because the 10 games is going to be served if he's on a team or not. And he's not on a team right now because teams don't want to deal with it. So he can serve out a suspension while he's not playing in the league, which I totally think that you should serve out your suspension when you get with another team. But that's not the case. So it's hard for me to think that he's completely innocent when he is not really protesting the 10-game suspension. He's accepting it. And that does seem a little strange, for me at least.
What's annoying Skraby today? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about the time. All right, well, Daily Gripe will come anyway, and it's this. So my car clock is 2 minutes slower than my phone clock, and I don't know why. I noticed this a couple weeks ago, but I had it plugged into the Android Auto, and I noticed that my phone clock was 2 minutes faster than my car clock. So what I did was I went and I looked at the universal time or whatever, the atomic time, and I put it into my car. So everything matched up. And then 2 weeks later, I'm back to 2 minutes behind. How does a digital clock get so slow, especially in a car? I don't understand it. I don't understand it. But there's my gripe, is that my car clock is broken, and I don't know what time it is half the time. Thank you for listening to The Skraby Show. Back tomorrow, Benwood, 6 a.m., 97.3 The Fan. Have a good night, everybody.